Hey everybody, today I've got some really fun ideas for gouache paintings in your sketchbook. All of these are sort of on the magical side. I couldn't really wait for Halloween to post this because it's gonna be a while until then. But this could be, if you're watching this around Halloween, a good idea. But honestly, I think it's always time for stuff like that. I love the magical stuff, and I think these little doodles worked really well with gouache. I took my time with the sketch here, and you can also kind of see the page on the left is the underwater landscape that I posted a few weeks ago. So I sort of wanted to use similar colors, but since I wasn't 100% happy with the colors on the left side, I kind of adjusted my palette slightly so I would like it a bit more, and it fits with the page on the left, but it still has its own palette that I really like. So I am very happy with how these turned out and glad that I get to finally show these to you. And I just did different types of bottles, I did candles, crystals, all different things that you would probably find in a magical room. Everything you need to know, you need to have to brew potions, and we also have some stars around it and some plants. And I just wanted to fill the page basically, and all of the little gaps were filled by smaller objects. And then I started to color in the different things, and I started with a pink tone. I was using quite a bit of pink here just to tie it together with the page on the left, but also some of these more lilac, purple, pink tones. And like I said, I'm really happy with the colors that I chose. And with these things that are fairly small like that, I really recommend taking your time. And if you are more of a beginner artist, then maybe making everything a little bit bigger could also help, just so you have more room to add all of these details. Personally, I really like to do small things every now and then because it's also a bit of a challenge for me not to go overboard with the details, because the bigger a piece is, the more details I can add. Especially with gouache, I feel like you have unlimited reign to add details because you can build up the colors and add more and more layers. You can recreate these with gouache. You can also do that with acrylic paint or even with watercolors. Of course, if you're using something like watercolors, you have to use them a little bit differently than I did here because my colors are opaque. But I don't think I did that many layers here. Mainly I was using my gouache in a way where I can blend my colors, which is something that I really like, where I create a lot of gradients. And you can also see that I didn't do one of these doodles at a time. I jumped all over my page. I do that quite often with these types of things because I let the different sections dry in between, and so I don't have to wait around for them to dry. I just jump to the next section or literally somewhere else, and everything else can dry in the meantime. When I'm then going back to that section, everything is dry already. And also an advantage of doing it like that is that I am sort of spreading my colors around, if that makes sense. I used the dark blue, for example, on the top left. I used it in the bottom center, and then I used this color that I'm using right now, this very light bluey lilac color, and I just colored multiple things with that in and just jumped around, and that's gonna make the entire page go together really nicely because we have similar colors throughout. And then after I did the color that I was using, for example, here it is this blue lilac color, this very light tone, then I mixed with that a different color sometimes. For example, then I would go in and add a little bit of pink to that, and then I have a slightly different variation of the same color. And I do that quite often because then I have more variety. You can see I covered that sketch up a little bit here and just went over it later on. Sometimes that's easier to just do it in layers. Here you can see, for example, I used the dark blue and I added more light blue. So now I have a different variation. It's still similar to the dark blue because I used the dark blue in the mix, but I added the lighter color as well. And now I can use that, but I don't have the dark blue anymore on my palette because I just mixed it in. If you want to still have the exact color, I obviously recommend not mixing it with other colors and getting rid of it. But honestly, this is just a workflow that I do for doodles like that, where it doesn't really matter. I don't need the exact color again, and I just spread the color around at first, then I mix the next color, spread that around, then I mix the next color, and it's all sort of in the same color family in a way, because we have the blue tones and we have the pink tones. So right now we only have these. I'm also gonna add warmer colors afterwards, but it's gonna fit together all really nicely because I was using the same palette and the same colors throughout while mixing. And this is also one of the reasons why I don't mind if my palette gets a little bit dirty, because that just makes my color palette more cohesive. If it's really muddy and I can't get really nice colors anymore because I have mixed everything together in too many muddy and dirty ways, then I just squeeze out more paint out of my tubes and just get fresh paint and add it to the palette again. And that way I don't have overbearing and really vibrant colors. I have colors that really go together nicely and are muted a little bit. And even though I'm using a lot of colors, I'm just introducing green as well to the palette, I think they still go together really nicely because it's toned down a little bit. And in that way, I am really creating palettes that work for me, and I am filling an entire page with a lot of different things, but they all go together in a way. And if you want to learn more about how to pick and mix colors, I really recommend joining the Cozy Creators Collective, which is my online art membership. I have an entire class that is real-time, just about picking and mixing colors. I was using watercolors in that class, but the things that I explained apply to pretty much every medium. And I also did a bunch of other art classes already. I did one about lights and shadows recently. That one is really in-depth. It's the most in-depth so far. So if you want to improve the lights and shadows in your pieces, then I really recommend checking that out, because there's so much valuable information. And I have all of the theory and exercise worksheets in every class, so all of the resources you might need. We have reference pictures, and every other week we do a live session, and then on the alternating week we have a pre-recorded art class, and there's, I believe now, 5 already in there. And then on this Saturday there's gonna be the next live session. So if you want to join that, it's gonna be this Saturday. So I think that's July, let me check. It's July 6th, and it's gonna be 4 p.m. Central European time. And as always, it's gonna be recorded, so if you can't join live, you can re-watch it later on. But I would really love to see some of you live, because I love to chat to you. The chats and all of that is not in the recording because I want to honor people's privacy. So the only part of the recording is me actually painting. But some people are painting along, and you can get that sense of community and the chats. Like, you can talk face to face or type in the chat if you want to. And all of that stuff is really something that I want to make a cozy hangout with friends every other week where we get together and do something based on a theme. So I can't wait for the next one. And like I said, there is a free trial, and if you join now, you can do the live session completely for free, because if you join when this video goes live, then you have 7 days of the free trial. So that's going to be enough time to join that live session. If you join later on, if this video has been live for a while when you watch this, make sure to check out the website. I will link it in the description box because there's information about all of that. And I will tell you what's in there and how to join and all of that. Just yeah, I think that's enough information about this for this video, but really make sure to check out the link in the description box, because at some point I might close the membership for joining. I don't know yet. Right now it's open, and I might also increase the price at one point. I don't know about that yet either. But if you join right now and then after the trial you stay in there, then you pay the price that it's currently at, and it will never increase for you as long as you stay in. So it's gonna be locked. So I hope if you really want to join that you check it out, because so often when I do stuff like that, afterwards I get emails from people telling me, oh no, I missed it, and they got 10 reminders because they were on a reminder list, but they still missed it. And I don't want you to miss out on this if you want to check it out. And really, there's no strings attached, because if you don't add a payment method in the trial, it's just gonna expire. I don't want to rope you into anything. I want you to go in there, confirm that it is the community that you really want to be a part of, and that you like the stuff in there, and then I would love to have you on board long term. So now I'm really done with this. I'm just really excited about this because it is fairly new at this point. You can see in my picture here that I introduced a bunch of warmer colors now. I introduced some orange tones and yellow tones, and I was just doing the same thing with just mixing the colors that I have with the newer colors just to make a cohesive palette. And the reason why I introduced the orange in this is because I wanted it to tie in with the piece on the left, and I think it did the trick. Even though we have something that is theme-wise completely different. On the left side we have an underwater landscape, and then on the right side we have all of these magical witchy doodles. So theme-wise it really doesn't go together that much, but color-wise I think it is a nice page spread, and it is something that I do in my sketchbooks a lot. Most of my sketchbook spreads, I would say, are color coordinated like that, and I really like that challenge as well. We have kind of a starting point. When I've already done a piece on one side, then I can already kind of bounce off of that on the other page and have the challenge to somewhat make it fit with the other one. And that's just one less thing to think about in the piece, because I already kind of have a color palette. Like I said, with this one, I wasn't fully happy with the one on the left, so I slightly adjusted it on the right, really ever so slightly. I think we have a lot of the same colors here as well, but I think they just work together so much more nicely. I was really conscious of making them work. Maybe it's also because the background is still white and I left it white. I didn't do a background because I wanted it to not be too overbearing. Maybe that's why it works a little bit better, but also I did a lot more of these in-between colors that I thought that it needed, and I didn't go too overboard with the extremer brighter colors like on the left side. You can sort of see it here in this frame, even the really vibrant pink next to the really vibrant green and the blue. Personally, for me, it's just not as successful of a color palette. most of the time, like 95% of my pieces, I am extremely happy with the colors that I pick. So it is rather rare for me to not be 100% happy with it. So I'm glad that I kind of took the challenge of improving the palette, honestly. I added some colors that are a bit darker and more muted, like with the crystals right here. We have those darker colors as well, these really dark maroon purple tones, and I sort of made it work a lot more with those. And also these colors, these purple blue tones, are some that are not in the piece on the left but still work really well with this. I think that's all that I have to say about the colors here. I feel like I've rambled on and on a lot about this, but I hope that all of these can inspire you. I would also love to see if you create something like that. Maybe you can pick your own color palette for this and maybe do these things, maybe the same objects that I painted here, but with different colors. I get a lot of joy from seeing different versions of what I created when people tag me on Instagram. By the way, make sure you tag me on the picture. My handle is Visual Mind Art, and not just in the description of the picture, because then I will for sure miss your piece. Because when you tag me on the picture, then I can go back to see all of the pictures that I've been tagged on, and I can see it even later on. But if you just tag me in the description of the picture, then it will definitely be drowned out by all of the other notifications that I get, and I don't go through all of those constantly, because it's really not that manageable on Instagram. The whole notification system, when it comes to my own channel, is much better on YouTube, because I can see all of the comments and everything in one space. But then again, when on YouTube, when I comment on other people's videos, that's really broken, because then I don't get replies to that. So it's not perfect either. But on Instagram, as a creator, it's really hard to manage all of these. So if you ever comment on something that I posted on Instagram and you didn't get a reply, that's not because I am ignoring you or anything. It's just because I didn't see it. But also on YouTube, I do tend to get a lot of comments. So if I never reply, that could be a reason. But sometimes I go back and just take an hour or two just responding to people, whether that's on Instagram or on YouTube, and just take my time on that. And the same thing with the pictures that I'm tagged on. Like every month or so, I sit down and I look at the pictures that I've been tagged on. Sometimes it's every other month. I really am not 100% consistent with that, but I do look at every single picture that I've been tagged on if it has to do with my art. If it's just a random picture that I was tagged on, then I might not react. But if you recreate something that I created and then you tag me, I am for sure gonna at least like your picture at one point. Probably also gonna comment on that. So there's that, if you were wondering about if you've ever tagged me or something and I didn't react. Probably you didn't tag me on the picture or video. If it's a reel, I don't know how that works, but I think you can tag people in reels as well. You definitely have to tag me on the post itself and not just in the description, and just do the @Visual Mind Art. If you just write it out, it's not gonna work. Yeah, I starting to get to a finish point. That makes no sense. The piece is getting more filled. It's not completely finished either. We still have a few minutes of this, so don't click off just yet. I think that the finishing touches always really make pieces look good. Like, there's a lot of things that happen in the very last section of a piece. With a piece like this one, I feel like it didn't really have an ugly stage, because I had sketches that I was just coloring in. So I sort of had a plan from the beginning how it would turn out. With other pieces, you have a lot more trusting to do when it comes to the whole process. With other pieces, they really have an ugly stage. I think that one looked really okay all throughout, but still those little details in the end really make it go together and just add so much. And I think with gouache, you can really take your time with this and do so much. I could have done even more details with this, could have done so many gradients and lights and shadows, and you can really take this so far. I've seen so many great artists do pieces with gouache that are just absolutely stunning. So if I had unlimited time and also patience and energy, it's not just time, I probably could spend even more time on these, but it's not just about that. At some point my hand starts to hurt, my neck starts to hurt, all of these things. If those weren't issues, then I could do such detailed pieces with gouache. And also if I didn't try to finish something every single week. But I don't think that I'm the type of artist who would work on a piece for multiple months. I don't think that I could mentally do that. That would be extremely boring to me. So I think I am at a point where I have a good balance between making the pieces look nice to a degree, but it is still sustainable content-wise, where I don't completely burn myself out because I do too intense pieces. Because if I force myself to really perfectly finish every single piece, then I'm just gonna spend hours and hours and hours. So it's not always just a matter of skill, it's also a matter of patience and time. If your pieces don't turn out exactly like you want them to, you might just give up too quickly, and if you spend another hour or two on them, they might look a lot better sometimes, especially with gouache, because you can add so many layers. But at some point, I just have to say that it's enough, it's good enough, and to just finish it off, even though I could add so much more, because otherwise I'm gonna drive myself crazy. If you somewhat regularly create art, you can probably relate to this. I know every artist has a little bit of a different approach to this. Some artists do these really quick doodles and that's what makes them the happiest, and other artists really love to spend multiple months on one piece, especially if it's like something on a canvas with oils, something where you zoom in on the piece and you focus on every detail. And there's the more messy artists and the more structured artists, and it's so interesting to see all of these different types. And it's also really important to remember that you don't have to compare yourself to the ones that are different in this approach than you. Some will have more detailed art and some will have quicker art, and that's okay because we need a little bit of variety there. Imagine how boring it would be if all of our art was the same. So now I feel like I have rambled on enough and we are now really getting towards the finish line of this one. This was just one page but with a bunch of different doodles on it. I hope you enjoy this type of video as well and not just me doing multiple pages, because I believe this one took pretty much as long as if I were to do multiple quick pages, just because I did so many small things on here. But this way I got something that I really enjoyed. So I'm trying to mix and match the type of content that I do. Let me know in the comments down below what you really would like to see. Here is the finished result of this one. Again, don't forget to join the Cozy Creators Collective, and I would love to see you on the next live session.